Will a robot be signing your next paycheck? I mean, as AI's capabilities just explode, that's that's the question a lot of us are quietly asking, isn't it?
It really is.
So today, we're not just asking, we're diving deep into some sharp thinking our own team has been doing lately. It was inspired in part by the UN Development Programme's latest look at AI in their 2025 report.
Exactly. Yeah, we've taken their comprehensive overview of AI and human potential and really put it under the microscope.
Okay.
Our goal is simple, really. Just pull out the truly surprising and, frankly, essential insights for you, the listener, for anyone who wants to grasp what AI really means for your work life, for society, without getting lost in a maze of tech speak.
And right at the heart of the UNDP's report, and it's something we've been particularly focused on in our own analysis too, is this crucial idea. How do we make sure AI actually empowers people? Instead of leaving many folks by the wayside. Okay, so let's unpack what the report really nailed first. What were their strongest insights, do you think?
Well, I think one of the most powerful takeaways really is its insistence on human agency. Forget the sci-fi takeover narrative for a second.
Right.
The biggest message here is that AI's destiny is actually in our hands. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that this seemingly unstoppable AI revolution is really just a series of human choices.
Yeah.
What really stands out is the report's firm stance against this idea that technology just, follows some predetermined path. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right. That's such a relief, actually. It's so easy to feel like swept along by this wave of AI innovation. Just inevitable.
Totally.
But the report kind of grounds us, saying, hold on, wait a minute, we're the ones steering this ship.
Precisely. And think about it like this. A teacher deciding to use AI, maybe to personalize feedback for their students, really honing in on individual needs.
Okay.
That's a conscious human decision to amplify the teacher's impact.
Yep.
It's a world away from just, replacing the teacher entirely with some AI tutor.
Completely different mindset.
Exactly. The report really champions this proactive, human-driven approach.
Which leads perfectly, I think, to another key area the report highlights. This idea of augmentation sort of winning out over pure automation.
Yes.
It's about forging partnerships between humans and AI, not just seeing them as like locked in some battle for jobs.
Exactly. And this is such a vital shift in perspective. Instead of immediately panicking about, oh no, robots stealing jobs.
Which is the default reaction sometimes.
It often is. But the report encourages us to explore how AI can actually make our work richer, more effective, maybe even open up entirely new avenues we haven't thought of.
And we've seen some pretty compelling examples of this in our own work, haven't we, as we've looked into it?
Absolutely. Consider radiology. That's a great example.
Okay.
AI can now analyze medical images with incredible speed, right? Flagging potential issues that maybe a human might miss in the sheer volume of data they have to process. But, and this is the crucial element, the final diagnosis, the expert interpretation, that still comes from the human radiologist.
I see.
It's this powerful synergy where AI handles the speed and scale, maybe the pattern recognition, and the human provides the nuanced understanding, the critical medical judgment. That blend feels not only productive, but frankly reassuring for patients too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the report also took a really interesting angle looking at how AI's impact differs depending on, well, where you are in life, your age. That's not a lens you see applied very often, is it?
No, it's a deeply nuanced point, and it's so important because, let's face it, technology doesn't affect everyone equally.
Sure.
Younger people, for instance, they might be incredibly quick to adopt new AI tools, seem very comfortable with it, but the report also raises valid concerns, like the potential for increased social isolation or mental health challenges in a hyper-connected world that's partly shaped by these AI interactions.
Okay. And what about older generations?
Well, the report highlights a real risk of significant exclusion for older adults. And often this isn't because they lack the desire to engage with technology. That's a misconception. It's more often because AI-driven systems are just designed without their needs or maybe their levels of digital comfort in mind. Think about trying to navigate an entirely AI-powered banking system if you're not, digitally native. That barrier isn't a failure of the individual. It's really a failure of inclusive design.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, another critical point the report addressed head-on was the global digital divide, the very real possibility of AI actually widening existing inequalities.
Yes, and this is crucial. While so much of the AI conversation happens in, well-connected parts of the world, the report rightly underscores that many countries just lack the fundamental building blocks to truly benefit.
Like what specifically?
Well, we're talking about essential infrastructure, like reliable internet access, for starters. Then there's the need for a skilled workforce and even the ability for countries to control and leverage their own data.
It paints a pretty sobering picture, actually.
It really does. Imagine a dedicated teacher in a remote part of a developing nation, eager to equip their students with knowledge about AI. But if there's no consistent internet, no accessible tools, no locally relevant curriculum, that potential just remains untapped. The report really forces us to look beyond the AI experiences of just, say, North America or Europe.
Definitely puts things in perspective. And finally, from the positive side, the report champions this idea of complementarity economies.
Yeah.
What's the core principle there?
So the report basically acknowledges that our current economic models, well, they often prioritize pure automation. Replacing human labor with technology seems to be the primary goal lots of times.
Right. Efficiency above all else, maybe.
Kind of. A complementarity economy, on the other hand, would reshape our economic incentives to actually reward genuine collaboration between humans and AI. It's about fostering innovation that truly empowers workers and enhances their capabilities rather than simply making them obsolete.
Okay, can you give us like a tangible example of how that might look?
Sure, absolutely. Picture a logistics company. Okay. One strategy might be to invest solely in replacing warehouse staff with robots. That's the pure automation route. But a complementarity approach might involve developing AI-powered tools that help those same workers optimize their picking and packing routes, maybe making their jobs more efficient, perhaps less physically demanding to...
I see.
The outcome for the workforce, and, likely the long-term success of the business too, is potentially significantly different. It's about working with people.
So, okay, the report definitely lays out some vital considerations and offers a hopeful vision in many respects. But where did it perhaps miss the mark? Where did our own analysis, looking closely at this, identify some crucial gaps or areas that weren't fully explored?
Yeah, that's the critical follow-up, isn't it? Because while the report provides a valuable kind of high-level overview, when we really consider the everyday realities of work, certain significant nuances seem, overlooked.
Okay.
A key area, we think, is the increasing prevalence of what we've started calling algorithmic bosses.
Algorithmic bosses, okay.
The report focuses quite a bit on AI replacing tasks, but it seems to underestimate how AI is increasingly being used to directly manage human workers.
That sounds a bit dystopian. How does that actually manifest in the real world?
Well, think about the gig economy. It's a prime example. Many drivers or delivery workers, they have their schedules dictated, their performance evaluated based on often pretty unclear metrics.
Right.
And they can even face penalties or, termination of access to work, all driven by algorithms with very limited or sometimes zero human intervention, and often no real opportunity for appeal.
Wow.
Imagine a driver getting penalized by an app because unexpected traffic, totally out of their control, slowed down their route. There's no human manager to explain the situation to, right?
Yeah.
No context considered, just the sort of unyielding logic of the code.
That's a pretty significant blind spot in the report, then. It's not just about robots on an assembly line anymore.
Exactly. It's much more subtle sometimes. And another area where the report, in our view, doesn't really delve deeply enough is the widespread emergence of what we've been calling so-so AI.
So-so AI. I like that term.
Yeah. The report touches on technology that replaces human labor without a significant boost in productivity, but it doesn't fully capture just how pervasive this is becoming, we feel.
So AI, it captures that underwhelming reality of some of these AI deployments, right? Mm-hmm. Where are we seeing a lot of this?
Unfortunately, it seems pretty prevalent in many customer-facing roles. Think about those endless chatbot loops that just frustrate customers.
Oh, I know those well.
Right. And ultimately, they require human agents to step in and resolve the issues anyway. The promise was efficiency, but often it just creates more work for the human agents who now might face tighter quotas and maybe less autonomy to actually help customers effectively.
So it diminishes both the customer experience and the quality of the employee's job.
Exactly. And we're also seeing this creep into HR and other internal support functions too.
It sounds like these so-so AI implementations might actually be generating more frustration and potentially even hindering overall efficiency sometimes.
Precisely. And this connects directly to another gap we identified. The report's relatively weak proposals for safeguarding worker rights in the age of AI. It doesn't offer many really concrete policy recommendations for how workers can challenge unfair decisions made by these AI systems.
That seems like a pretty fundamental oversight, doesn't it? If an algorithm is making decisions that significantly impact someone's livelihood, there needs to be a mechanism to question those decisions.
Absolutely. Imagine someone applying for a loan, right, and they get denied based on some AI-generated risk assessment.
Okay.
If the applicant has no way to understand how that score was calculated, what factors were considered, or even have an opportunity to appeal the decision, well, that's a fundamentally unfair and disempowering situation. Without algorithmic transparency and clear avenues for recourse, individuals are kind of at the mercy of these often opaque systems.
The report does mention the issue of bias in AI, I remember that. But our analysis suggests it might not fully appreciate the depth of certain blind spots embedded in these technologies.
That's right. While the report definitely acknowledges that bias is a concern, it doesn't fully explore how AI systems frequently end up reflecting the biases and limitations of the environments where they are developed, and crucially, the data they are trained on.
Can you provide an example of how this might manifest?
Sure. Consider voice assistants. Many of them struggle to accurately understand accents that aren't from, say, predominantly Western English-speaking regions.
I've noticed that.
This isn't necessarily an inherent technological limitation. It's often a reflection of the datasets they were trained on, which means this can effectively exclude millions of people from fully accessing and benefiting from these technologies simply because of their linguistic or cultural background.
Finally, it seems the report didn't really tackle the underlying power dynamics related to, well, who owns and controls all this AI technology?
That's a huge point. And yeah, it's largely overlooked in the report. The fact is, the core AI infrastructure and the most advanced AI models are currently concentrated within a really small number of large private companies. And this raises pretty significant questions about who ultimately benefits the most from AI and, critically, who has the power to shape its future direction.
So what are the potential implications of this concentration of ownership? Why does that matter so much?
Well, imagine a country, maybe a smaller nation, that becomes entirely reliant on AI APIs from foreign corporations for critical public services like healthcare or education.
Okay.
They might have very limited ability to audit those models for potential issues, maybe for bias, or to adapt them to their specific local needs and cultural contexts. They might even struggle to ensure the security of their citizens' sensitive data because the underlying technology is proprietary and essentially a black box.
Creates a huge dependency.
Exactly. This lack of control can create significant dependencies and really limit a nation's ability to chart its own AI-driven future.
Okay, so drawing from this deeper exploration, thinking about the UNDP report and our analysis.
Yeah.
What do we see as the crucial next steps? What key recommendations emerge from looking at what they got right and where they perhaps fell a bit short?
Well, our analysis points pretty clearly to several vital areas. Firstly, we urgently need robust algorithmic accountability frameworks.
Okay, what does that involve?
These should mandate a degree of explainability so individuals can actually understand how AI decisions that affect them are made alongside clear and accessible appeal processes for challenging those decisions. And importantly, mechanisms for incorporating worker input into the design and deployment of AI systems in the first place.
That makes perfect sense. Transparency, recourse, worker voice sounds fundamental. What else is critical?
Secondly, particularly in the realm of public services, we need a fundamental shift towards worker-centered technology procurement. Meaning when governments and public institutions invest in AI, the primary focus really should be on selecting tools that genuinely augment human capabilities and empower workers, rather than simply aiming for wholesale automation of existing roles just because they can.
A focus on tools that uplift people, not just replace them.
Got it. Thirdly, our skills development programs need a significant evolution. While technical skills like coding are undoubtedly important and they get a lot of attention,
Sure.
we also need to heavily invest in what we might call human-centric skills. Areas like ethics, complex communication, critical thinking, collaboration, creativity. These skills will become increasingly essential in a world where humans and AI are working in close collaboration.
So it's not just about training people to use AI, but also equipping them to think critically about its broader societal implications and to work effectively alongside it.
Exactly right. And finally, thinking globally, we need to foster development frameworks that actively support the creation of open, locally relevant, and inclusive AI infrastructure.
Mm.
This is about empowering nations, especially those currently lagging behind, to develop their own AI capabilities in a way that aligns with their unique needs, their values, and their cultural contexts, not just importing solutions built elsewhere.
It all seems to come back to that core principle you mentioned earlier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ensuring that AI ultimately serves humanity.
It absolutely does. The UNDP is absolutely correct. AI's impact isn't set in stone, it's not predetermined.
Right.
But our analysis really underscores that truly preparing for a future where AI benefits everyone requires more than just identifying the potential challenges. It demands proactive, well-defined strategies and, frankly, concrete actions. We need to move beyond simply acknowledging the choices we face with AI to actively shaping its development and implementation with human well-being right at the forefront. It's about having not just choices, but a voice.
Some truly powerful insights emerged from our discussion today. Just to quickly recap for everyone listening, we explored the UNDP's 2025 report on AI and human development, highlighting their crucial emphasis on, well, human agency, the power of augmentation over automation, the importance of that life stage perspective, the stark realities of the global digital divide, and the concept of complementarity economies. We also delved into key areas where our analysis suggests the report perhaps underplayed significant factors, things like the rise of those algorithmic bosses, the proliferation of underwhelming so-so-AI, inadequate frameworks for worker rights, those persistent gender and cultural biases in AI design, and the lack of scrutiny around concentrated AI ownership.
Yeah.
And finally, we discussed the urgent need for things like algorithmic accountability, worker-centered tech procurement, a renewed focus on those vital human-centric skills, and global initiatives to support inclusive AI infrastructure.
That's a concise and insightful summary. And our ongoing aim, really, is just to provide you, the listener, with clarity and hopefully a deeper understanding of these complex and rapidly evolving issues.
So maybe as you consider your own work or the industry you're in, here's a question to sit with. What's one concrete step you believe could genuinely foster that complementarity, that partnership between humans and AI? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.
It really is.
We encourage you to continue exploring this vital topic. You can find more details and resources related to our analysis by checking out the links in the description. We look forward to our next deep dive.